Have you ever felt invisible to the people closest to you? Like no matter how much you try, they only see a small part of who you really are? That was how I felt when my own children took my credit cards away, believing they were protecting me. They did not know that behind the scenes, I had built something strong and valuable, a company I secretly owned. It was a part of me that they never expected and never saw. This story is about more than just money or possessions. It is about the pain of feeling misunderstood, the shock of betrayal, and the quiet strength I found inside myself when I thought I had lost everything. It is about learning to trust again, to stand tall, and to discover power in the most unexpected places. If you have ever faced family conflict or felt underestimated, this story will speak to your heart. Before we begin, please tell me where you are tuning in from. And if this story touches you, please subscribe. Because tomorrow, I have something truly special saved just for you. My name is Elizabeth Carter. I am 62 years old. I live in a quiet neighborhood just outside of Denver. My house is small, but full of memories. I have lived here for almost 30 years. Each morning, I wake up at 6. I like to start my day with a cup of tea. I sit by the kitchen window and watch the world slowly wake up. The sun rises over the trees, and the birds begin to sing. That is my favorite moment of the day. It is peaceful. Still, after breakfast, I water my plants. They are like old friends to me. Some of them have been with me since my children were babies. I have 2 children, Michael and Sarah. They are both grown now. Michael is 35. Sarah is 32. They each have their own lives, their own families. Michael is an engineer. He is serious and thoughtful. Sarah is a school teacher. She is full of energy and ideas. I am proud of both of them. They visit me every week. We sit in the living room, drink coffee, and talk about their lives. I listen. I smile. I nod. That is what mothers do. I spend my afternoons reading or knitting. Sometimes I walk to the park nearby. I watch the ducks in the pond. I watch young mothers pushing strollers, just like I used to. The world has changed, but some things stay the same. People often ask me if I get lonely. I do not. I enjoy the quiet. I enjoy my space. I have learned how to be alone without feeling empty. Once a week, I go to the grocery store. I take my time. I like to read the labels. I like to choose my own fruit, even if Sarah says I should order online. She worries about me. They both do. They say things like, "Mom, you should not drive so much." Or, "Mom, you should let us help with your bills." I smile and tell them I am fine. I have always been independent. I have always taken care of myself. I paid my bills. I raised 2 children. I even helped my husband run his business before he passed away. It was hard, but I did it. Now, things are calm, almost too calm. Last week, Sarah looked at my shoes and said, "Mom, those are too old." I laughed. "They are comfortable. They work just fine." But she shook her head and whispered something to Michael when they thought I was not looking. That was the first moment I felt something I could not name. I pushed the feeling away. I told myself I was just being sensitive. But that night, as I stood in my bedroom, brushing my hair in the mirror, I looked at myself closely. There were more lines around my eyes than I remembered. My hair was more silver than brown. I saw a woman who had lived many lives, but who was now being seen as old. I did not like that feeling. Still, life went on. I cooked. I cleaned. I laughed with my grandchildren. I paid my bills, just like always. But the next time Michael came over, he looked at my purse and said, "Mom, maybe you should let me manage your credit cards, just to make things easier for you." I blinked. My heart did a small twist. I told him, "I am fine, Michael. But he just smiled and said, "We know, Mom, but we want you to be safe." Safe. That word stayed with me. That night, I could not sleep. I stared at the ceiling and thought about that word. Safe. What did they think I needed protection from? My own life? My own choices? I thought everything was normal. But something felt different. Now something had started to shift, and deep in my heart, I could feel something changing. Yesterday, Sarah came over with groceries I did not ask for. She smiled too much. Her eyes looked nervous. "Just helping," she said. Michael called me 3 times in one day. He asked if I had eaten, if I had locked my door. Then, my credit card stopped working. I called the bank. They said it had been frozen. By my children. They said it was for my protection. I sat in my quiet kitchen. My tea was cold. Something was not right. I did not feel safe. I could feel something changing. And it did not feel kind. The next morning, I walked to the mailbox. It was something I did every day. But that morning felt different. My feet were heavy. My heart was not calm. I could feel something sitting inside me. Something I could not name. The sky was clear. The air was soft. Still, I felt like I was walking through fog. When I reached the mailbox, I found a letter from my bank. It said my account had new limits. I had never asked for that. I felt my hands start to shake. I went back inside and sat at the kitchen table. The same table where I had fed my babies. Where I had opened birthday cards. Where I had cried after my husband passed away. I picked up the phone and called Sarah. She answered quickly, as if she had been waiting for my call. "Hi, Mom," she said. Her voice was sweet, but it felt practiced. "Sarah," I said softly, "did you do something to my bank account?" There was a pause. I could hear her breathe in. "Yes, Mom," she said. "Michael and I talked. We just want to make sure everything is okay with your money. You have made a few small mistakes lately. You forgot to pay the water bill last month." I felt a sting behind my eyes. "I remembered the next day," I whispered. "I know," she said. "But still, we thought it would be better if we helped out more." I did not know what to say. I felt like I was floating above myself, watching this conversation happen to someone else. Sarah kept talking, but I could not focus on the words. All I could hear was the message underneath them. You are not in control anymore. After the call, I sat very still. I remembered when Sarah was 10 years old and afraid of the dark. She would cry until I came to her room. I would sit beside her and stroke her hair. I would say, "You are safe. I am here." Now she was treating me like a child. I looked around my kitchen. The same yellow curtains, the same wooden floor. But everything felt smaller. I felt smaller. I opened my wallet. My credit cards were still there, but useless now. Later that day, Michael came over. He smiled like everything was normal. He brought a bag of groceries. I asked him why he froze my account. "Mom," he said, sitting down across from me, "we just want to help. You are not as young as you used to be. Mistakes can happen. It is nothing to feel bad about." I looked at my son, my boy, the one I had taught to ride a bicycle, the one I had stayed up all night with when he had a fever, the one I had loved every single day of his life. He looked back at me with gentle eyes, but I could not find comfort in them. I felt like a stranger in my own life. "Do you think I cannot take care of myself anymore?" I asked. He hesitated. That small silence told me everything. "I think you need help," he said carefully. "Help." That word again, I nodded. Not because I agreed, but because I did not have the strength to fight. When he left, I stood at the window and watched him walk to his car. My chest was tight. My eyes felt heavy. I did not cry. Not yet. Instead, I stood in the hallway and looked at the photo on the wall. Me, Michael, and Sarah years ago. All of us smiling. No fear, no doubt. I touched the frame with my fingertips. What happened to the trust between us? What changed? The strange part was, they thought they were doing the right thing. They were not being cruel. They were being protective. That was what made it hurt even more. I did not want to be angry. But I was. I did not want to feel alone. But I did. I did not want to lose my freedom. But slowly, it felt like I was. I sat on the edge of my bed that night, looking at the soft light on the ceiling. My world had not fallen apart. But something was cracking, and I did not know how to stop it. The next few days passed slowly. I watered my plants. I made soup from scratch. I even cleaned the pantry, just to stay busy. But no matter what I did, the feeling would not go away. Something inside me had changed. I did not feel in control anymore. I felt like a guest in my own life. On Thursday, Michael called again. He asked if he could stop by. I told him yes. A part of me hoped he would come with an apology. A part of me still wanted to believe he was doing what was best for me. When he arrived, he looked tired. There were dark circles under his eyes. He sat on the couch and rubbed his hands together. "I know you are upset, Mom," he said softly. "But you have to believe me. We are trying to help." I nodded slowly. I did not want to fight. I just wanted to understand. "I have always handled my own finances," I said. "Even when your father passed away, I paid the bills. I fixed the roof. I even helped you with your first car loan." He smiled a little. "I know. You were amazing. You still are. Then why do I feel like I am being punished for getting older?" Michael looked at the floor. He did not answer right away. He finally spoke. His voice was quiet. "It is not about age. It is about safety. There are scams, mistakes, forgotten bills. We just want to protect you before something goes wrong." I heard his words. I understood his concern, but deep down it still hurt. "Did I ask for your protection?" I asked. "No," he said. "But sometimes people do not know when they need help." I sighed. He meant well. That much I knew. He was not cruel. He was not trying to control me on purpose. He believed he was doing the right thing. And maybe that was the most painful part. I looked at him and remembered when he was a teenager, struggling with math. I sat with him for hours at the kitchen table. I told him he could do it even when he did not believe in himself. Now, the roles had reversed. He saw me as fragile. I saw myself as capable. Two different versions of me were now living in two different minds. Still, I wanted to believe in him. I wanted to trust that he truly had my best interest at heart. I did not want this wall between us. So I said, "Michael, I will try to meet you halfway. But I need you to give me some space. Let me prove that I can still manage parts of my life." He looked up. He nodded slowly. "Okay, what do you want?" "I want access to one of my cards again," I said. "Just one. Let me use it for groceries and small things. I will keep receipts. I will even call you once a week if that makes you feel better." He was quiet for a moment, then said, "All right, we can try that." I felt a small wave of relief. It was not full freedom, but it was something. As he stood to leave, he hugged me tightly. "I love you, Mom," he said. "I know," I replied. "I love you too." After he left, I stood in the hallway again. I looked at the family photo. I touched the frame gently. Maybe trust did not have to disappear. Maybe it could bend without breaking. I wanted to believe that. That night, I slept. A little better, not because everything was fixed, but because a small bridge had been built. I still felt unsure. I still felt watched. But now, there was a little light in that darkness. A small moment of understanding. I needed to hold on to that. Because deep, inside me, something still whispered, "This is not over yet." The following week was quiet. Too quiet. I went back to my usual routines, watering the plants, feeding the birds, and sitting with my morning tea as the sun rose behind the hills. But I could feel something under the surface, a tension I could not name. It was like standing on a frozen lake, unsure if the ice would hold. I used my reactivated credit card for small things: eggs, milk, bread, nothing unusual. I kept every receipt in a neat envelope, just as I promised. I even called Michael twice to reassure him. He was polite, but distant. I could tell he was waiting for me to slip up. That hurt more than I wanted to admit. On Sunday afternoon, my neighbor Carol stopped by. She is a retired school teacher, always kind, always observant. We have shared many cups of tea and even more quiet conversations on my porch. She sat down across from me and looked at me with those steady eyes. "I saw your daughter in the pharmacy last week," she said. She was asking the pharmacist questions about medications. Your medications. I blinked. "Really? I have not changed anything in months." Carol nodded. "That is what I thought. But she was asking about memory pills, confusion, safety, risks, things like that." I felt the blood drain from my face. "She told the pharmacist she was worried about you," Carol added gently. "I am not trying to stir trouble, but it sounded serious and strange." I looked down at my hands. They were resting on my lap, still and pale. I whispered, "They think I am losing my mind." Carol reached across the table and held my hand. "You are not. I talk to you every week. You are sharp. You are thoughtful. Maybe a little tired, but who is not these days?" I tried to smile, but it felt wrong. "Do you think they are planning something?" I asked. She hesitated. "I do not know, but it would not hurt to be careful." After she left, I sat in silence for a long time. I thought about all the times I had driven Sarah to her piano lessons, the late nights I stayed up helping Michael write college essays, the sacrifices I had made so they could grow strong and confident. And now they were gathering behind my back, discussing me like I was already gone. Like I was a problem to solve. I stood up and walked to the mirror in the hallway. I looked at myself. My face was older, softer, but my eyes were still mine. I was still here. I was still me. That night, I took out a small notebook and began writing things down. Not just grocery lists, but memories, names, dates, bank accounts, passwords, anything they might try to take or question later. I did not want to believe it would come to that. But something inside me whispered that it might. The next day, I went to the pharmacy myself. I asked the young woman behind the counter if someone had recently inquired about my medication. She looked at me carefully. "Yes," she said. "Your daughter, I believe." She seemed concerned. "Did she mention anything about legal steps?" I asked. The woman hesitated. "I am not supposed to say, but she did ask about signs of cognitive decline. She also asked how to get medical records." I thanked her and left. My heart was pounding in my chest. Back home, I sat at my kitchen table and closed my eyes. I had always trusted my children. But now I heard a warning. Not from a stranger, Not from a doctor, but from a friend, and from within myself. Something was wrong, and I could no longer ignore it. I woke up the next morning with a tight feeling in my chest. The sun was shining, the birds were singing, but none of it reached me. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the floor, trying to breathe through the heaviness that had settled over my shoulders. Still, I told myself it was nothing. I told myself Sarah was just being a concerned daughter. I told myself Michael was only trying to help. I told myself I was overthinking. Because the truth was, if I believed the warning, I would have to admit something worse. That my own children might not trust me anymore, and that hurt more than anything. So I decided to ignore it. Or at least, I tried to. I made a pot of coffee, just like always. I fed the cat and swept the kitchen floor. I even turned on the radio and listened to soft piano music, pretending it was just another ordinary day. I did not tell Sarah what Carol had said. I did not ask Michael about the pharmacy. I kept it all inside. Maybe, I thought, if I act normal, everything will stay normal. That afternoon, Sarah came over. She brought groceries, even though I had told her I had already shopped. She looked around the house like she was checking for something. Something broken. Something forgotten. Then she opened the fridge and frowned. "Mom," she said, "you already bought eggs and milk. You are doubling up on things." I looked at her. I was planning to bake this week. She did not look convinced. She put the bag down and sat at the table. I could see it in her eyes. Worry, fear, maybe even suspicion. But there was also love. I knew she cared. I talked to Dr. Emerson. She said slowly. I felt a chill go down my back. "Why?" I asked. "Just to ask some questions," she replied. "About early signs, about safety, about memory loss." I placed my cup on the table, carefully. "Sarah," I said, "I am not sick. I am not confused. I am just tired. A little overwhelmed, maybe. But I am still me." She nodded, but it was the kind of nod that did not mean yes. It meant, "I hear you, but I do not believe you fully." "I know, Mom," she said, "but it is our job to be careful. We love you too much to take chances." I tried to smile. I thanked her for the groceries. I let her give me a long hug before she left. And when she was gone, I stood at the window and watched her drive away. That smile I gave her had taken all my strength. Because inside, I was not smiling. Inside, I was breaking. I wanted to believe she was just being cautious. I wanted to believe Michael was just being kind. But I could feel it now, like a small crack in a window. Trust was starting to slip through. Still, I told myself, just wait. Do not jump to conclusions. Do not cause a fight. Just keep going. Keep smiling. Keep pretending. So I did. That night, I baked an apple pie. I called an old friend just to hear a familiar voice. I even took a warm bath and lit a candle beside the tub. I was trying to live as if nothing was wrong, but something was, and I could not ignore it forever. I lay in bed that night with the lamp still on. The house was quiet, but my mind was loud. Every word from Sarah echoed in my head. Every silence from Michael pressed against my heart. I stared at the ceiling and whispered to myself, "They love me. They just do not see me clearly anymore." And maybe that was the hardest part. Not being hated, not being hurt, but being misunderstood. Still, I would not let fear control me. Not yet. A few days passed before I saw Michael again. He called one morning and asked if I wanted to have lunch together. I said yes, though I was not sure why. Maybe I still hoped for something, a kind word, a clear sign. or even just a look that reminded me of the son I raised. We met at a quiet cafe near the park. It was a place we used to visit when he was younger. I used to bring him here after school, when he had good grades to celebrate or bad days to forget. Now we sat across from each other like two polite strangers. He asked about the garden. I asked about his work. We talked about the weather and the news and everything except what really mattered. I tried to read his eyes. I kept looking for warmth, for softness, for that light I used to see when he smiled at me as a child. But something had changed. He looked at me too carefully, like he was watching for signs, as if I might slip or forget or fumble with a word. His gaze was not cruel. It was not cold. But it was no longer free. It was cautious. I took a sip of tea and asked gently, "Michael, do you think I am losing control?" He blinked, surprised. "No, Mom," he said quickly. "I mean, not exactly." I raised an eyebrow. "What does that mean?" He sighed and set his fork down. "It means, I think you are still sharp in many ways, but I also think you do not always see what is changing around you." I looked down at my plate. The food was untouched. "Do you mean the world?" I asked. "Or myself?" He hesitated. "Both." The silence between us stretched like a tight rope. Finally, I said, "Do you know what hurts the most? It is not that you worry. I understand worry. It is that you do not look at me the same way anymore. You look through me." Michael looked uncomfortable. He picked up his napkin, folded it, unfolded it again. "I love you," he said. "I am trying to do what is right." "I know," I said. "But sometimes, what feels right for one person feels like a prison to another." His expression shifted. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. I realized then that he did not see me as the woman who once held his world together. He saw me as someone fading, slipping, someone to manage. It broke something deep inside me. After lunch, we walked to the parking lot together. He offered to drive me home, but I refused. I told him I needed the walk. He kissed my cheek and said goodbye. As I watched him drive away, I felt like I was watching a wall rise slowly between us. One made not of anger or hate, but of fear, misunderstanding, and misplaced love. When I got home, I went straight to the mirror again. I looked into my own eyes. I did not see someone who was confused. I did not see someone who needed to be protected from her own life. I saw a woman who had been strong for a long time, and who was now being doubted by the very people she loved most. That night, I wrote in my notebook again. I wrote about Michael's expression, the cautious tone in his voice, the polite distance in his words. I wrote, "They see age, not experience. They see risk, not resilience." And that hurt, because I had always been proud of who I was, of what I had built, of what I had given. But now, my own son looked at me like I was a question that needed to be solved, and I did not know how to change that. I could not carry the weight of silence any longer. After that lunch with Michael, something inside me began to ache more deeply. It was not just sadness. It was a quiet desperation, a longing to be seen, to be heard, and to be trusted again. The next morning, I woke early. I sat in the kitchen with my tea and stared at the chair across from me. I imagined Michael sitting there as a boy, kicking his feet and laughing as he told me about school. That version of him had felt so close, but now he felt miles away. Picked up the phone. "Michael," I said when he answered. "Can you come over today? Just for a short visit. I need to talk." He paused. Is everything all right? Yes, I said. But I need to ask you something. In person. He arrived, later that afternoon. He looked a little nervous, but he smiled and kissed my cheek. I had made his favorite lemon tea and set it out with biscuits, just like old times. We sat down at the table. I looked at him, really looked at him. His eyes, his posture, the way he kept adjusting the sleeves of his shirt. I took a deep breath. Michael, I said softly, do you believe I am no longer capable of managing my life? His expression froze. He looked down at the table, then back at me. I believe, he said slowly, that you are going through changes. We all do as we get older. That is not what I asked, I replied. Please be honest with me. He rubbed the back of his neck. Mom, Sarah and I have been talking. We are just worried. You made some strange purchases a few months ago. You called me twice in one day and did not remember the first call. You left the oven on once. That was 6 months ago, I said. And the oven incident was because the timer failed. I know, he said quickly. But still, when things like that add up, we start to wonder. I leaned back in my chair. So you decided to take my credit cards, I said quietly, without asking. He looked ashamed for a moment. We only wanted to keep you safe. I nodded. Safe, but not free. There was a long silence. I picked up my tea and held it gently between my palms. Michael, I said, do you know how it feels to be treated like a stranger in your own home? To have your life slowly rearranged by people who once depended on you? He looked up at me, and this time, I saw something shift in his face. Maybe it was guilt, or maybe it was fear that he had gone too far. I never wanted to hurt you, he said. I do not want to lose you. Then do not push me away, I said. Do not take control of my life while I am still living it. He sighed. I am sorry, Mom, truly. But what if something did happen? What if you forgot something important, or got hurt, and we did nothing? I placed my cup down. I understand your fear, I said. But I need you to understand mine. I am afraid of disappearing while I am still breathing. I am afraid of being erased, one quiet step at a time. We both sat there in silence, the kind that felt heavy and long. Finally, he reached across the table and took my hand. I do not know the right answer, he said, but maybe we can talk more. Really talk, without assumptions. I nodded. That is all I wanted, I said. The truth. From your mouth, not behind my back. He gave a small smile. It was not the same smile from his childhood, but it was a start. That evening, after he left, I wrote in my notebook again. I asked him the truth, and he told me, not everything I hoped for, but enough. And for the first time in weeks, I slept through the night. The morning after Michael left, I sat at the kitchen window long after my tea had gone cold. I stared out at the garden, watching the way the light touched the leaves. Everything outside looked calm, but inside my mind, thoughts spun like a storm. I kept hearing his words. I kept replaying every sentence, every look, every pause. We only wanted to keep you safe. That sentence echoed over and over again. I could not stop thinking about what safety meant to him, and what it meant to me. For him, it meant control. For me, it meant trust. And those were not the same thing. That day, I tried to distract myself. I folded laundry. I watered the plants. I even tried reading one of my favorite books. But the words on the page kept slipping away. At lunch, I sat alone at the table and looked at the empty chair across from me. It used to be filled with stories, laughter, or quiet comfort. Now it felt like a symbol of something missing. Later, in the afternoon, I called Elizabeth, my friend from the neighborhood. She picked up quickly. "I was just thinking of you," she said. "How are you?" "I do not know," I replied honestly. "I cannot stop thinking about everything." She listened patiently. I told her about Michael, about the credit cards, about the way he looked at me like I was slowly fading. She sighed. "That must hurt deeply." "It does," I whispered. We talked for nearly an hour, and when I hung up, I felt a little lighter. But not enough. Because even though someone understood me, it did not change what was happening inside my own mind. That night, I could not sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, counting the seconds between each breath. My mind would not quiet. It wandered from memory to memory, from fear to anger, from sadness to guilt. I thought about the day I taught Michael how to ride a bike. He had fallen and scraped his knee, and I had picked him up and held him close. He had cried into my shoulder, and I had promised to keep him safe. Now he was the one trying to keep me safe, but not by holding me, not by listening, by limiting me. It felt like the deepest kind of misunderstanding. Around 3 a.m, I got out of bed and walked through the house. I touched the framed photographs on the wall, the family vacations, the birthdays, the Christmas mornings. Every picture held a piece of a life that felt like it was slipping away from me. I sat down in my armchair and opened my notebook. I began to write. I cannot stop thinking about who I was, who I still am, but they do not see me, not fully, not clearly. I wrote about the fear of becoming invisible, about how quickly things had changed, about how my voice felt quieter now, not because I had nothing to say, but because no one was really listening. I looked at the clock. It was almost 5. The sky outside was beginning to shift from deep black to soft gray. A new day was coming. But it did not feel new. It felt heavy, like a page that would not turn. Still, I stood up and opened the window. The air was cold and fresh. I closed my eyes and let it touch my face. And for a moment, I remembered who I was. A woman who had built a life, raised a family, faced loss and joy. A woman who had survived every season so far. I whispered to the morning air, "I am still here." And I promised myself I would not let anyone forget that. The days that followed were filled with silence, not the peaceful kind, but the heavy kind, the kind that settles into your chest and makes it hard to breathe. I did not cry. I did not shout. I simply moved through my house like a shadow of myself. Stopped turning on the television. I barely answered my phone. I went through the motions, washing the dishes, brushing my hair, tidying up the cushions on the couch. But I did it all with a strange stillness inside. It was as if my emotions had gone into hiding, but the pain was still there. Quiet, but present. One afternoon, I sat on the edge of my bed and looked at the rain falling outside. The sky was gray, and the droplets tapped gently against the glass. I watched them trace thin paths down the window pane. I used to love the rain. I used to find comfort in its rhythm. But now, it only echoed the sadness I felt. I wrapped a blanket around my shoulders and walked to the living room. I did not turn on any lights. I just sat in the dim room and listened. The ticking of the old clock on the wall, the wind brushing against the windows, the faint hum of the refrigerator, and my own breathing. Slow, careful, heavy. There were moments. I wanted to call Michael again, but I stopped myself. I did not want to sound bitter. I did not want to cry into the phone. I wanted to wait until I had more strength in my voice, until I could speak without shaking. I tried to write again. I opened my notebook and stared at the blank page. My pen hovered for several minutes, but nothing came. What was I supposed to write? That I felt betrayed? That I felt unseen? That I was starting to wonder if this was what aging really meant? Being doubted, overlooked, slowly erased? Instead, I closed the notebook. That evening I made myself soup. Simple chicken broth with noodles. It reminded me of the days I made it for Michael when he was sick. He used to smile up at me from his blanket on the couch and say, "You always make it better, Mom." That memory made me pause. I stood in the kitchen, spoon in hand, and stared at the stove. I missed that boy. I missed the way he used to run into my arms without thinking twice. I missed the warmth in his voice when he called me just to talk. Where had that version of him gone? Or maybe I should have asked, where had the version of me gone that he once believed in? After dinner, I sat by the fireplace. I did not light it. I just sat there, remembering all the nights I had read to him in that same spot. Fairy tales, chapter books, silly stories with funny voices. I had given him everything I could. But now, I sat alone, with no story to read, no child to comfort, and no one to comfort me. I leaned back and closed my eyes, and in that moment, a tear finally fell. Just one. It slid slowly down my cheek and touched the edge of my jaw. It was not loud. It was not dramatic. It was quiet. Like the pain I had been carrying for days. That night, I went to bed without brushing my hair. I left the dishes in the sink. I turned off the light and lay under the covers, staring into the darkness. And I whispered to myself, "You are not broken. You are just tired." I repeated that phrase again and again until I fell asleep. The pain had not left, but I had finally let it speak. The next morning, I woke up with a quiet determination I had not felt in weeks. The pain inside me was still there, but it was joined by something new, an urgent need for answers. I could no longer carry the weight of questions without knowing the truth. I needed to understand why Michael had taken my credit cards, why he thought it was necessary, and most of all, why he did not trust me. I dressed slowly, choosing my favorite blue sweater. It was soft and comforting, like a shield I could wear. I made myself a cup of coffee and sat down at the kitchen table. My hands trembled slightly as I waited for Michael to come home. When he arrived, I was sitting in the same spot, staring at the window. I did not look at him immediately. Instead, I watched the shadows grow longer on the floor as the afternoon light faded. He hesitated by the door, unsure if I would speak to him. I finally turned and looked into his eyes. "Michael," I said, my voice steady but soft. "I need to know why you took my credit cards without telling me." He swallowed and sat down opposite me. For a moment he said nothing. Then he looked away and began to speak. "It was for your own good," he said quietly. "You have been forgetful lately. Mom, I am worried about you." His words stung, but they also made me realize how much fear he carried. Fear that I was slipping away. Fear that he might lose me. "I understand your concern," I replied. "But taking my cards without asking me, that is not trust. It feels like you think I am not capable." He looked down at his hands. "I did not mean to hurt you," he said. "I just wanted to protect you." The room was heavy with silence. I wanted to reach across the table and take his hand, but I held back. Instead, I took a deep breath. "There is something you do not know," I said carefully. "Something I have kept hidden because I did not want to worry you or anyone else." His eyes met mine again, curious and cautious. "I own a company. I said slowly. I have for years. It is something I built quietly, on my own. I have not told you because I thought it was my business, something private. His eyebrows raised in surprise. It is doing well, I continued. Better than well, actually. It has given me financial independence and security. But more than that, it has given me strength. Michael looked down again, as if trying to understand what I had just shared. I wish you had told me, he said softly. I know, I said. But I wanted you to see me for who I really am. Not just your mother who needs protecting. I wanted to show you that I am still capable, still strong. Tears filled my eyes, but I did not let them fall. Instead, I reached for the small box on the table beside me. It was a keepsake from my company, a simple silver pin engraved with the company logo. I handed it to Michael. This is part of me, I said. It is the part you missed when you took my cards. The part that is still here, still fighting. Looked at the pin and then back at me. I am sorry, he whispered. I did not see you like that. I thought I was helping. I nodded. I know. But we need to trust each other. Not just protect, but believe in each other. He reached out and took my hand gently. Can we start again? He asked. I smiled faintly. Yes, I said. We can start again. That night I felt a little lighter. The pain was still there, but it was softer. There was hope in the air. Hope that maybe, just maybe, we could heal. As I prepared for bed, I thought about the journey ahead. It would not be easy. There would be more challenges and more questions. But I was ready, because I had found a new strength inside myself. The strength to face the truth, to speak my mind, and to demand respect. I closed my eyes and whispered to myself, I will not be invisible, and for the first time in a long time I believed it. After the conversation with Michael, I thought the hardest part was over. I believed that honesty and openness would bring us closer. Yet, what I did not realize then was how much I still had to learn, and how deep the secrets really ran. Few days later, I received a phone call from my lawyer. His voice was calm but serious. Margaret, there is something you need to know about the company. My heart skipped a beat. I had always managed my business quietly, without interference. What could have changed? The lawyer explained that someone had been trying to gain control of my company. A group of investors was quietly buying shares behind my back. They wanted to take over, and if I did not act quickly, I could lose everything I had built. The news hit me like a wave. I sat down, clutching the phone tightly. I was shocked and confused. How had I missed this? How could people try to take my company without me knowing? But then, a part of me woke up, a fierce determination to fight for what was mine. I thought about my life before. The years I worked late nights, the sacrifices I made. I thought about the moments I doubted myself and pushed through anyway. I thought about the strength I had found inside, even when my own family questioned me. This was not just a company. It was a symbol of my independence and power. That afternoon, I called Michael. I needed him to understand everything. I received news today, I told him. Someone is trying to take over my company. He was silent for a moment. Then he said, Why did no one tell me? I did not want to worry you, I replied. But now I need your help. He agreed to meet me the next day. Together, we began to review the situation carefully. I discovered emails, contracts, and hidden agreements, all pointing to a quiet takeover attempt. It was painful to realize that people I trusted were involved. Some colleagues I had worked with for years had been secretly selling shares. I felt betrayed again. But this time, I did not shrink back. I stood taller. I remembered the woman I had become. With Michael's support, I contacted my lawyer and financial advisor. We created a plan to protect the company. I was ready to fight, not just for the business, but for myself. That night, I sat alone in my office, surrounded by papers and files. The weight of responsibility was heavy, but so was my resolve. I thought about the long journey that had brought me here, the pain, the confusion, the silence. I thought about the tears I had shed and the strength I had found. I finally understood something important. Strength does not come from never falling. It comes from rising every time we fall. It comes from facing pain, looking it in the eye, and choosing to keep going. I was not the same woman who had let her children take her credit cards out of fear. I was a woman who had built a company, a woman who deserved respect, a woman who was ready to take control of her life. As I looked out the window, the sky was clearing. The clouds were breaking apart, and a soft light filled the room. I smiled, quietly. For the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful, because I finally understood. The days after learning about the attempt to take over my company were filled with endless meetings, phone calls, and emails. I felt exhausted, yet more alive than I had in a long time. The fight to protect what I had built gave me a renewed purpose. But even as I pushed forward, a part of me was breaking. The betrayal was not just from strangers or business partners. It was from people I had trusted, friends, colleagues, and most painfully, family. Michael tried to help, but the tension between us was growing. He was torn between his desire to protect me and the anger he felt for being kept in the dark for so long. One evening, after a long day of negotiations, I found myself standing at the edge of my garden. The sun was setting, painting the sky with soft pink and orange colors. The calm beauty of the moment was a stark contrast to the storm inside me. I realized that the pain and confusion were too much to carry alone. I needed space to think, to heal, and to regain my strength. The next morning, I packed a small bag. I told Michael I needed time away, some quiet moments to clear my mind. He looked at me with a mixture of sadness and understanding. "I will be here when you are ready," he said softly. I nodded and left. I drove to a small cabin by the lake, a place I had visited in my youth. It was simple and peaceful, a perfect retreat. The first days were hard. I felt lonely and vulnerable. My thoughts kept circling around the betrayal, the broken trust, and the future of my company. But slowly, the quiet of the lake began to soothe me. The gentle sound of water, the cool breeze, and the rustling of leaves helped me breathe more deeply than I had in months. I started to walk along the shore each morning, feeling the soft earth beneath my feet. The physical act of moving helped me move emotionally as well. I thought about the woman I had been and the woman I wanted to become. I realized that walking away was not a sign of weakness, but a step toward strength. I was stepping back not to give up, but to gather energy. During those days alone, I reflected on my relationships. I thought about Michael, my children, and the people who had let me down. I acknowledged the pain without letting it control me. I wrote in my journal, pouring out my fears and hopes. I wrote letters I would never send, expressing my anger and sorrow. Most importantly, I allowed myself to feel, fully and honestly. The tears came freely, and with them came healing. I also spent time thinking about forgiveness, not just for others, but for myself. I understood that I had blamed myself for too long. I had felt ashamed for not knowing everything, for needing help, and for being vulnerable. But now I saw that strength was not about perfection. It was about honesty, courage, and self-love. As the days passed, I felt a quiet change inside me. The pain remained, but it no longer defined me. One morning, as the sun rose over the lake, I stood on the dock and looked out at the water. The reflection of the sky was clear and bright. I felt ready. Ready to face the challenges ahead. Ready to rebuild trust. Ready to take control of my life again. I knew the road would be difficult. There would be more tears, more hard conversations, and moments of doubt. But I also knew that I was not alone. I carried with me the lessons of this journey, the strength to walk away when needed, the courage to ask for help, and the wisdom to believe in myself. I packed my bag once more and headed home. When I opened the door, the familiar sights welcomed me. My house, my company, my life, all waiting for me to step back in. I was not the same woman who had left. I was stronger. I was wiser. I was ready. Returning home brought a strange mix of comfort and unease. The walls, the furniture, even the familiar scent of lavender in the air, all reminded me of years filled with both joy and hardship. Yet beneath that comfort, a quiet pain lingered. It was a weight that no amount of time or distance could easily erase. I thought that walking away would clear my mind and heal my heart. But pain is not something that simply disappears. It stays with you, quietly, patiently, waiting for the right moment to remind you it is still there. Some days it felt like a dull ache, just beneath the surface of my skin. Other days, it hit like a sudden sharp sting, stealing my breath and making my chest tight. I would sit alone, watching the sunlight shift through the window, and feel tears well up without warning. The hardest moments were the quiet ones, when the house was still, and the noise of daily life paused, the silence filled with memories. I remembered the laughter that once echoed here, the shared dinners, and the conversations that now seemed so distant. The pain was not only about what had happened, it was about what had been lost, trust, love, and the sense of safety I once felt with my family. I thought about my children and how they had taken my credit cards away, believing they were protecting me. Their actions were rooted in fear, but the consequences were painful. They missed seeing the real me, a woman strong enough to own a company, to make her own decisions, and to protect herself. That misunderstanding created a wall between us, a wall built from unspoken words and unhealed wounds. Sometimes I wondered if we could ever climb over it. To cope, I began to pour my feelings into small routines. I started each morning with a cup of herbal tea, sitting by the window and watching the world wake up. The quiet ritual grounded me when the emotions felt overwhelming. I also took long walks in the park nearby. Nature had a way of calming my restless mind. The sight of trees swaying in the breeze, the songs of birds, and the soft earth beneath my feet reminded me that life moves in cycles, seasons of growth, change, and renewal. Slowly, I started to accept that the pain was part of my story. It did not define me, but it was a piece of who I was. I allowed myself to feel sadness without shame. I cried when I needed to. I acknowledged anger and frustration without judgment. Through this acceptance, a small healing began. One evening, as I sat alone in my living room, I found myself reaching for my journal. Writing had become a refuge, a place where I could untangle my thoughts and make sense of my emotions. I wrote about the past and the present. I wrote about the family I loved and the mistakes we had made. I wrote about the hope I still held for the future. The act of writing helped me see that pain and love can coexist, that healing is not about forgetting hurt, but learning to live with it in a way that no longer controls us. Days passed, and with each sunrise, I felt a little lighter. The pain was still there, but it no longer felt like a chain. Instead, it became a quiet teacher, reminding me to be patient, to forgive, and to grow. I also began to reach out to others. Friends who had faced their own struggles shared stories of resilience and courage. Their words encouraged me and made me feel less alone. One particular conversation stood out. A dear friend said, "Margaret, pain shows us where we need to heal. It is not a weakness, but a path to strength." Those words stayed with me. I realized that healing was a journey, not a destination. It would take time, effort, and kindness, especially toward myself. So I continued to walk forward, step by step, day by day. The pain stayed, yes, but it no longer held me prisoner. I was learning to live with it, to embrace it as part of my story without letting it define my future. And in that, I found a new kind of freedom. There are moments when the present feels heavy, and my heart quietly longs for the past. The past, with its simpler days, familiar faces, and memories that bring warmth even in the coldest times. I miss those times more than I expected. I miss the laughter echoing through my home when my children were young. Their bright smiles, endless questions, and boundless energy filled every corner of the house. Life seemed so full of promise back then, even when it was messy or hard. I remember Sunday mornings when we gathered around the kitchen table, sharing pancakes and stories. Those small moments felt so ordinary, yet they were the foundation of our family. I did not realize then how precious those times were. Sometimes I close my eyes and let those memories wash over me. I can see the sunlight streaming through the windows, hear the soft hum of the radio, and smell the scent of fresh coffee. I miss feeling connected, not just to my children, but to myself in those simpler days. The past is a safe place to visit, even if only in my mind. It reminds me of who I was before pain and betrayal clouded my world. Yet, I know I cannot live there. The past is a chapter, not the whole book. When I allow myself to feel this longing, I also remind myself of the lessons I have learned. I have grown in ways I never expected. I have found strength in my own voice and courage in my decisions. But missing the past is natural. It is a sign of love and loss intertwined. I find comfort in looking through old photo albums. Each picture tells a story. Moments frozen in time when happiness was simple and love was easy to see. There's a photo of my children at the park, their faces glowing with joy as they ran through the grass. Another shows us gathered at Christmas, surrounded by laughter and warmth. These images remind me of the beauty life holds, even when things change. Sometimes, I share these memories with friends. Talking about the past helps me heal. It is a way of honoring what was good and acknowledging what was lost. I also write letters to my younger self, words of encouragement and love. I tell her she is brave, strong, and worthy of happiness. Remembering, the past helps me appreciate the present more deeply. It teaches me to be patient with myself and others. I am learning to hold both the past and the present gently, without clinging too tightly or pushing away. There are days when the ache of missing feels like a quiet song in my heart. On those days, I let myself listen and feel, knowing it is part of my healing. I also look ahead, dreaming of the future I want to create. A future where love, trust, and joy return in new forms. The past is not a place to hide, but a foundation on which I can build. I still have much to learn, many steps to take, and new memories to make. Missing the past is part of that journey, a sign that I care deeply and have lived fully. In the quiet moments, I whisper to myself, it is okay to miss. It is okay to hope. Because life is a delicate balance of holding on and letting go. And in that balance, I am finding my way. There are times in life when we need a voice outside our own to help us see clearly. For me, That voice came from a dear friend named Helen. She has known me for years, and I trusted her with my deepest feelings. One afternoon, feeling overwhelmed by everything, I decided to call her. I invited Helen over to my house. When she arrived, her warm smile and calm presence immediately eased some of the heaviness I felt inside. We sat down in the living room, the afternoon sun casting soft light through the curtains. I began to speak slowly, carefully choosing my words. I told her about the pain that stayed even after I walked away from the family conflict. I spoke about the loneliness that sometimes wrapped around me like a heavy blanket. Helen listened without interrupting. Her eyes showed understanding, and her silence gave me space to express my fears and hopes. Talking to Helen helped me see things differently. She reminded me that healing is not a straight line. There are ups and downs, moments of clarity and moments of confusion. She said that it is okay to feel lost sometimes because it means I am growing. Helen shared her own struggles, stories of times she felt broken and uncertain. Knowing that I was not alone in this made me feel less isolated. We laughed softly at the irony of life's challenges and cried together when the sadness felt too much. She encouraged me to be gentle with myself. "Margaret," she said, "you have been through a lot. Give yourself permission to rest and take small steps forward. You do not have to fix everything all at once." Her words felt like a balm on my tired heart. I realized that I had been too hard on myself, expecting to heal quickly and perfectly. But healing is a process that requires patience and kindness. Helen also reminded me of my strengths. She spoke about how I had managed my company quietly for years, how I had made brave decisions, and how I still held love in my heart despite the pain. Her faith in me helped me believe in myself again. We talked about hope. Helen said that hope is not about pretending everything is perfect. It is about believing that better days are possible and worth working for. I nodded, feeling a small flicker of light inside me. After our conversation, I felt lighter. It was as if a door had opened, allowing fresh air and new energy to enter my world. Helen's friendship became a source of comfort and strength. Over the following weeks, we continued to talk often, sometimes by phone, sometimes over tea. She helped me see the progress I was making, even when I felt stuck. Her support reminded me that healing is a shared journey, that I did not have to face it alone. Through Helen, I learned the power of connection, how sharing our stories can heal wounds and build bridges, how empathy and understanding can turn pain into growth. This friendship became a lifeline, guiding me through dark moments and helping me find light in unexpected places. I also began to reach out to others, slowly rebuilding my social circle. I joined a local book club and a community gardening group. These activities gave me new purpose and joyful distractions. Talking to Helen taught me another important lesson: the importance of asking for help. It is not a sign of weakness, but of courage. I realized that true strength comes from admitting when we need support and allowing others to walk beside us. As I walked this path, I felt my heart soften. The anger and bitterness that once filled me began to fade, replaced by understanding and compassion. I still carried my pain, but it no longer felt like a burden. Instead, it was a part of my story that had shaped me. Helen's friendship reminded me that I am not defined by my struggles, but by how I respond to them, and with that knowledge, I felt ready to face whatever lay ahead. Saying goodbye is never easy. It carries a weight that touches every part of the heart. For me, this goodbye was not just about parting from someone else. It was about letting go of a dream, a hope, and a part of myself that I had held on to for too long. It was the moment I finally accepted that some things cannot be changed. I remember the day clearly. The sun was low in the sky, casting long shadows across the garden where I sat. My thoughts were heavy, swirling like leaves in the autumn wind. I knew it was time to say goodbye. but my heart trembled with both fear and relief. I called my son, James. Our conversations had become strained and distant. He avoided my calls or spoke with cold politeness. The warmth we once shared had faded into silence and misunderstanding. I realized that continuing to hope for reconciliation without respect or kindness was only causing me more pain. When James answered, I spoke calmly. I told him that I loved him, but I needed to protect myself now. I needed peace in my life. I explained that this goodbye was not about anger, but about healing. It was a boundary I had to set to protect my heart. There was silence on the other end of the line. I could hear his breath, hesitant and uncertain. Then, he said little, just a quiet, okay. I felt a mix of sadness and acceptance. Sometimes, people are not ready to meet us where we are, and that is not our fault. After that call, I felt an unexpected calm. The storm inside me began to settle. Saying goodbye had opened space for new beginnings, even if it felt like an ending. I also said goodbye to certain dreams I held for my family. Dreams of closeness, understanding, and shared joy. Those dreams had kept me tied to hope, but they had also held me back. Releasing them allowed me to focus on the present and the future I wanted to create for myself. I remembered the times when I had tried to fix everything, to make others see my worth, or to heal wounds that were not mine to heal. I understood, now that I cannot control other people's actions or feelings. I can only choose how I respond. Saying goodbye was a gift I gave myself, a chance to reclaim my peace and dignity. I also said goodbye to guilt and blame. For many years, I carried the weight of what went wrong in my family. I blamed myself for things I could not change. But now, I chose forgiveness. Not for them, but for me, I allowed myself to grieve fully, to cry when the sadness came, and to feel the emptiness without fear. Grief is a natural part of goodbye. It is the heart's way of healing. I found comfort in writing letters I never sent. Letters filled with honest feelings, apologies, hopes, and farewells. These letters were for my own healing, a way to speak the words I could not say aloud. I also found strength in small rituals, lighting a candle to honor what was lost, planting flowers in my garden to symbolize new growth, and walking alone in nature to feel grounded. Each step of saying goodbye was a step toward freedom. Freedom from pain that no longer served me, from expectations that held me back, and from relationships that drained my spirit. I was not alone in this journey. My friend Helen continued to support me with kindness and wisdom. She reminded me that goodbye is not an end, but a beginning in disguise. I also discovered a new connection with myself. I learned to listen to my needs and honor my feelings. I practiced self-care and self-love, simple acts that rebuilt my confidence and joy. Saying goodbye allowed me to open my heart to new possibilities. I began to imagine a life filled with hope, peace, and new relationships built on respect and love. It was not easy, and the pain did not disappear overnight. But each day, the burden grew lighter, and my spirit grew stronger. I understood that goodbye is not about forgetting or giving up. It is about choosing what is best for our well-being and happiness. I stood in my garden one evening, watching the sun set behind the trees. The sky was painted with colors of orange, pink, and purple. A beautiful reminder that even endings can be filled with grace and beauty. I whispered softly to myself, I am ready to say goodbye, and I am ready to live. This goodbye was not the closing of a door, but the opening of a new chapter, one written with courage, hope, and love for myself. Being alone is a feeling that many people fear, but for me, being alone was a moment of clarity and strength. After the difficult goodbyes and the pain I carried, I found myself in a quiet space, a place where no one's voice crowded my thoughts, and no one's actions pulled me in different directions. It was just me, alone with my feelings and my thoughts. At first, the silence felt heavy. The house was too quiet. The days felt longer. I missed the noise of family life, even the arguments and the tension. I missed the warmth of shared meals and laughter. The absence of those moments made me feel lonely. But slowly, I began to see that being alone did not mean being empty. I used this time to listen to myself, to hear the voice that I had ignored for many years, the voice that wanted to speak freely, without fear of judgment or interruption. I allowed myself to cry when I felt sad, and to breathe deeply when the weight was too much. I discovered that being alone gave me a chance to heal in a way I could not before. Without distractions, I could look inside and understand what I truly needed. I realized that I had been searching for approval and love from others, when the most important approval must come from within. I spent hours walking in my garden, feeling the earth beneath my feet and the sun on my face. The simple act of being in nature helped me find peace. I watched the seasons change and felt connected to the rhythm of life. It reminded me that change is natural and growth is possible. I also began to enjoy small rituals that brought me comfort. Making tea in the quiet morning, reading books that nourished my soul, and writing in my journal to express my thoughts. These moments became treasures, anchors in the storm of emotions. Being alone also gave me the freedom to make decisions for myself. I no longer had to worry about pleasing others or managing conflicts. I could focus on my own happiness and well-being. This freedom felt both scary and exciting. I learned to appreciate my own company. I found joy in simple things like listening to music, watching the sunset, and cooking meals just for me. These acts of self-care helped me rebuild my confidence and remind me that I am enough. Of course, there were days when loneliness returned like a shadow, when the silence felt too loud and the emptiness too deep. On those days, I allowed myself to feel those emotions without guilt. I reminded myself that feeling lonely is a part of being human. I also reached out to Helen, my dear friend, whenever I needed to talk or simply hear a friendly voice. Her support was a comforting reminder that I was not truly alone. Through this time of solitude, I discovered a new strength, a strength that comes from knowing oneself deeply and choosing to stand tall, even when no one else is there. I began to see that being alone is not a punishment or a failure. It is an opportunity, a gift to grow, heal, and become whole. I started to see my home differently. No longer a place filled with tension and sadness, but a sanctuary where I could rebuild my life. I cleaned and organized my space, making it a reflection of who I was becoming: calm, clear, and strong. I also found peace in routines that gave my days structure. Waking early, taking walks, preparing simple meals, and setting small goals. These routines helped me feel grounded and purposeful. Being alone gave me time to reflect on what I truly want from life. It was a time to dream new dreams, to set new goals, and to plan for a future that centers around my happiness and growth. I realized that being alone does not mean being lonely forever. It is a season, a chapter that prepares us for new connections and new joys. As the days passed, I felt my heart open in new ways. I began to trust myself again, to listen to my inner wisdom, and to believe in my ability to create a life filled with meaning. I know now that being alone is not something to fear. It is a chance to find peace, strength, and love within. It is the beginning of a journey back to myself. Time has a way of changing us. Sometimes the changes are small and almost unnoticed. Other times they are deep and life-altering. I have learned that I am not the same person I was before. The journey I have walked, filled with pain, loss, and healing, has shaped me in ways I never expected. When I look in the mirror now, I see a woman with quiet strength in her eyes. She has been through storms and still stands tall. She carries scars, but they do not define her. Instead, they remind her of the battles she has won. I am no longer afraid to be alone. I have found peace in solitude. This peace has taught me to listen to my heart and trust my own voice. I have learned to value myself, not for what I give to others, but for who I am. The pain I once carried like a heavy burden has softened. It is still there, but it does not control me. I have faced my fears and grief, and in doing so, I have freed myself from their hold. I am not the same woman who begged for approval or clung to broken dreams. I have learned to set boundaries, firm and kind, that protect my heart. Saying no when something does not feel right is no longer difficult. It is a way of honoring myself. My relationships have changed too. I no longer chase after those who do not see my worth. I surround myself with people who respect and love me for who I am. This choice has brought peace and joy that I had not known before. I have become more patient with myself. I accept that healing is not a straight path. Some days are better, some are harder, but each day is a step forward. I also see that I have grown emotionally. I understand my feelings better. I allow myself to feel deeply without shame. Sadness, anger, hope, and love all have a place in my heart. This growth has helped me face challenges with courage. When difficult moments come, I no longer run away. I meet them with calm and resilience. I am learning to forgive, not just others, but myself. I forgive the mistakes I made and the times I did not know better. Forgiveness is a gift I give myself, a way to release the past and live fully in the present. I have found joy in small things: a warm cup of tea, the sound of birds in the morning, a kind word from a stranger. These moments remind me that life is beautiful, even in its simplest forms. My dreams have changed too. They are no longer tied to other people's expectations. They are my own, quiet and powerful. I am learning to trust them and take steps to make them real. I am not the same woman who felt powerless. I have discovered a strength inside me that I did not know existed. It is a calm, steady power that grows each day. This strength helps me face the future with hope. I do not know what lies ahead, but I trust that I can handle it. I am ready to create a life filled with meaning, love, and peace. Looking back, I see that every difficult moment led me here, to a place of self-awareness and empowerment. The pain was real, but so was the growth. I have learned that change is not something to fear. It is a natural part of life and a sign of our resilience. I am proud of how far I have come. I celebrate the woman I am becoming, whole, strong, and true to herself. I know that I will continue to grow and change. That is part of the journey, but I face it now with confidence and grace. I am grateful for this new chapter in my life. It is a chance to live authentically and with purpose. I am not the same woman who started this journey. I am better, stronger, wiser, and I am ready for whatever comes next. In the quiet moments of my solitude, I began to notice something new, a small light shining gently in the darkness. It was not a blazing fire, but a soft glow that warmed my heart and gave me hope. This little light was a sign that I was healing, that the pain was slowly lifting, and that new possibilities were waiting for me. For many months, I had felt lost, weighed down by sorrow and uncertainty. I thought I might never find peace again. But this small light reminded me that even in the darkest times, there is always a spark of hope. It may be faint at first, but with care, it can grow stronger. One morning, as I sat in my favorite chair by the window, I watched the sunrise. The sky was painted with soft pinks and golds. The world was waking up, full of promise. I realized that just like the day, my life was also ready for a fresh start. This thought filled me with a quiet joy. I began to look for small moments of happiness each day. It could be the smile of a neighbor, the smell of fresh coffee, or the sound of birds singing outside. These tiny blessings became my treasures, pieces of light that brightened my path. With this light inside me, I felt a gentle courage returning. I started to dream again. Not big, overwhelming dreams, but simple ones. I imagined myself learning something new, taking a walk in the park more often, or calling an old friend just to say hello. These ideas felt good, and I knew they were the first steps toward rebuilding my life. This small light also helped me forgive more deeply. I could see that holding on to anger and hurt only kept me trapped in darkness. Letting go was not easy, but it was necessary. I practiced kindness toward myself and others, even when it was difficult. Sometimes the light flickered, and doubts crept in. I wondered if I was strong enough or if things would ever truly get better. In those moments, I reminded myself that healing is not a straight road. It has twists and turns. What mattered was that I kept moving forward, no matter how slowly. I began to reach out more. I joined a small book club at the local library, where I met women who shared their stories and listened to mine. Their friendship was a balm to my soul. Together, we celebrated the small victories and supported each other through hard times. The light inside me grew brighter as I connected with others. I learned that vulnerability is not a weakness, but a bridge to true connection. Sharing my feelings helped me feel less alone and more understood. I also found comfort in my daily routines. Cooking healthy meals, tending to my garden, and writing in my journal gave me a sense of purpose. These activities became acts of love toward myself. One evening, I sat by the fireplace, feeling the warmth on my face. I thought about the journey I had traveled, the pain, the loss, and the healing. I realized that this small light was more than hope. It was a symbol of my resilience and the new life I was creating. I knew that challenges would come again, but I felt ready to face them. The light would guide me, reminding me of the strength I had found within. This small light also inspired me to dream bigger. I began to think about ways I could share my story, to help others who might feel lost and alone. I wanted them to know that healing is possible, even when the road seems long. I felt a deep gratitude for this light, the quiet flame that kept me going when everything seemed dark. It showed me that I am not alone, and that life holds beauty and hope, even after great pain. With each new day, I tended to this light with patience and care. I protected it from the winds of doubt and fear. I fed it with kindness, courage, and self-love. I knew that this light was my true guide, a reminder that even in the smallest moments, there is power and possibility. As I closed my eyes that night, I felt peace. The small light inside me was shining brightly. It was a promise that the best was yet to come. Starting over is never easy, especially after so much has changed. Yet, I found myself at the beginning of a new chapter in my life. The small light I discovered was growing stronger, guiding me gently forward. I knew it was time to begin again, not with fear, but with hope and determination. Each morning, I woke with a sense of purpose. I created new routines that honored my needs and gave me comfort. Simple actions, like stretching my body, drinking warm tea, and opening the curtains to welcome the sunlight, became rituals that helped me feel alive. I also made a promise to myself to take better care of my health. For too long, I had neglected my body and mind. Now, I joined a nearby gym where I could walk slowly on the treadmill and do gentle exercises. The movement refreshed me, and I noticed my energy returning little by little. Self-care became a priority. I started setting aside time each day just for myself. Sometimes I read books that inspired me. Other times I listened to calming music or wrote letters to no one but myself. These moments were like planting seeds of healing in my heart. The decision to begin again also meant opening my heart to new experiences. I tried things I had once feared or ignored. I signed up for a painting class, even though I had never held a brush before. I joined a cooking group to learn healthy recipes. These activities filled my days with joy and purpose. Slowly, my world expanded beyond the walls of my home. I met new people who shared my interests and values. Their warmth and kindness made me feel connected and less alone. I discovered the power of friendship and community in ways I had not known before. Beginning again was not just about activities. It was about mindset too. I worked on changing how I spoke to myself. Negative thoughts like, "I am not enough," or "I am too old to change," began to lose their power. I replaced them with gentle encouragement. "I am learning. I am worthy. And I am growing." This new mindset helped me face challenges with patience. When old fears or doubts appeared, I acknowledged them without judgment and reminded myself that growth is a process. I allowed myself to make mistakes and learn from them without shame. Starting over also meant healing old wounds. I sought the help of a counselor who guided me gently through my feelings of loss and betrayal. Talking openly about my pain was difficult, but it lifted a heavy weight from my shoulders. I learned that healing requires both courage and support. As I healed, I found new confidence. I began to speak up more clearly about my needs and boundaries. I no longer felt guilty for saying no when something did not feel right. This self-respect attracted positive changes in my relationships. I also began to explore my passions and talents. I spent time reflecting on what truly made me happy. I realized that I loved writing and storytelling. This discovery sparked a new dream: to share my experiences with others, hoping to inspire and comfort those who face similar struggles. Beginning again was not a sudden change. It was a series of small, steady steps. Some days were easier than others. I celebrated each victory, no matter how small, and treated setbacks as lessons rather than failures. I found joy in the little things: a quiet morning, a warm cup of coffee, a kind smile. These moments reminded me that life is full of beauty, even in its simplest forms. This new beginning was also a chance to reconnect with my family, but on different terms. I no longer expected them to change overnight or meet all my needs. Instead, I focused on building healthier boundaries and communicating. Honestly, I realized that true strength comes from within, not from others' approval. This understanding gave me peace and freedom I had never known. Beginning again taught me patience with myself and the world. I learned to trust the journey, even when the path was unclear. I understood that healing and growth take time, and that is okay. As the weeks turned into months, I felt lighter and more hopeful. The small light inside me had grown into a steady flame. It warmed my heart and guided me through the days ahead. I knew the road would still have challenges, but I was ready to meet them with courage and grace. Beginning again was not just about starting over. It was about becoming the woman I was meant to be: strong, wise, and full of hope. I smiled softly as I looked out the window at the world waking up. A new day had begun, and so had I. After months of healing and rebuilding my life, I did not expect him to return. Yet, one quiet afternoon, I received a message. It was from him, my son. The words were simple but heavy. "Can we talk? I want to make things right." My heart raced. I felt a mixture of emotions: surprise, hope, and caution. For so long, I had protected myself by keeping distance. Now, the past seemed to reach out again. I was unsure if I was ready to open the door. I thought deeply about what this meant. Did he truly want to change? Or was this another attempt to control me? Had he learned from the pain he caused? Or was he seeking forgiveness without understanding? The days before our meeting were filled with restless nights. I replayed memories in my mind. The hurtful moments, the silent dinners, the arguments. But I also remembered the small lights I found within myself, the strength I had gained. When we finally met, I chose a quiet cafe. I wanted a neutral place where we could speak honestly, without distractions. As he arrived, I noticed his nervousness. He looked older, tired, and maybe a little sorry. We sat across from each other, the table between us like a barrier and a bridge at the same time. He began by apologizing. His voice was low and sincere. He said he had been wrong to take my credit, cards, and underestimate me. He admitted that he missed the connection we once had. I listened carefully. His words stirred old wounds, but also opened a small window of possibility. I told him how much his actions had hurt me and how they broke the trust between us. I shared the loneliness I felt when he and my other children controlled my finances. He did not interrupt or defend himself. Instead, he nodded and acknowledged my pain. I realized that this honesty was new. For the first time, he seemed to see me, not just as a mother, but as a person with feelings and strength. As our conversation continued, I explained the journey I had taken, how I found that small light inside me, and how it grew into a flame of hope and courage. I told him I was no longer the same woman who would stay silent or accept being controlled. He looked surprised but listened. I could tell he understood. That reconciliation would take time and effort. It was not a quick fix or a simple apology. It required trust to be rebuilt and respect to be earned. I also set boundaries. I told him that any future relationship must be based on honesty and mutual respect. I would not allow anyone to make decisions for me or take away my independence. He agreed, and I saw a new determination in his eyes. He said he wanted to support me, to be part of my life again, but on equal terms. It was the first hopeful step toward healing. After our meeting, I felt a strange mix of relief and uncertainty. The past was not erased, but a new path had opened. I knew the road ahead would have challenges, but I was ready to face them with an open heart. I also realized that forgiveness does not mean forgetting or excusing. It means choosing to let go of anger to find peace. It means protecting myself while allowing space for growth. The small light inside me shone brighter that day. It reminded me that I am in control of my life and my choices. I am the author of my story. In the days that followed, I took things slowly. I talked with trusted friends and my counselor about the meeting. Their support helped me stay grounded and clear about my needs. I understood that rebuilding a relationship with my son would require patience from both of us. It was a delicate dance of trust, respect, and love. Most importantly, I felt proud of myself. I had faced a difficult moment without fear or anger. I had spoken my truth calmly and clearly. I had protected my heart while offering a chance for connection. He tries to come back, yes. But this time, I am not the same woman who once felt powerless. I am stronger, wiser, and ready to choose what is best for me. Life is full of surprises, and sometimes those surprises bring people back into our lives. How we respond makes all the difference. I chose to respond with courage and hope, and with that choice, a new chapter began. I looked at myself in the mirror one morning and realized something important. I am different now. The woman staring back at me carried the marks of her past, but she also held something new, strength and wisdom earned through pain and healing. I had changed in ways I did not expect, and this change was not just on the outside. It was deep inside my heart and mind. For many years, I allowed others to define who I was. I listened to their opinions and tried to fit into their expectations. I believed that my value depended on what my children thought or how they treated me, but now I understood that my worth comes from within. The experiences I endured, the betrayals and the losses, had broken me at first. But through that breaking, I learned to rebuild myself piece by piece. I learned patience with my own emotions, kindness toward my mistakes, and courage to face the future without fear. I no longer needed approval from others to feel whole. I was learning to trust myself, to listen to my inner voice instead of the noise around me. This voice was quieter, but clearer than ever before. It reminded me that I am enough, just as I am. This shift was not sudden. It came slowly, like a river carving its way through rock. There were days when I felt weak or doubtful. I questioned if I could really change or if I was simply fooling myself. But each time, I chose to keep moving forward. I discovered that being different now means accepting all parts of myself, the strengths and the weaknesses, the joys and the sorrows. I stopped fighting my past or trying to erase it. Instead, I embraced it as part of my story, something that shaped me but did not define me. This acceptance brought peace. I no longer carried the heavy burden of guilt or shame. I forgave myself for the times I had been too afraid or too quiet. I learned that forgiveness is a gift I give myself, not just others. Being different now also meant setting boundaries. I understood that love does not mean losing myself. I practiced saying no when something did not feel right. I protected my time, energy, and emotions. This was not selfish. It was necessary for my well-being. I noticed how these changes affected my relationships. People responded to the new me with respect and kindness. Some old patterns faded, and new connections formed. I attracted those who valued honesty and compassion. I also became more patient with others. I understood that everyone has their own struggles and journeys. I stopped expecting perfection from myself and those around me. Instead, I chose empathy and forgiveness. This new perspective gave me freedom. I no longer felt trapped by the past or by others' opinions. I could breathe more deeply and live more fully. I began to see life as a gift, even with its difficulties. Being different now meant I was ready to face whatever came next. I was no longer afraid of change or uncertainty. I trusted that I had the strength to handle challenges and the grace to enjoy happiness. This change affected even the small things. I noticed how I walked with my head held higher, how I spoke with clearer confidence, and how I smiled more often. Not because life was perfect, but because I chose joy. I am different now, and this difference is beautiful. It is the result of courage, healing, and self-love. It is a sign that growth is possible at any age and in any situation. I know that my journey is not over. There will be moments of doubt or pain, but I have learned that these moments do not erase my progress. They are part of the ongoing process of becoming whole. As I continue forward, I carry the lessons of my past with gratitude. I carry the strength of my present with pride. And I carry the hope of my future with excitement. This new version of myself is ready to live fully and love deeply. I am proud of who I am and who I am becoming. Looking back, I see how far I have come. Looking forward, I see endless possibilities. Being different now is my greatest gift. I stood quietly in my living room, feeling the weight of all that had happened. The noise of the past was still there, but it no longer controlled me. I had reached a point where I knew what I had to do. I had to choose myself. For so many years, I put others before me, my children, my family, their needs and opinions. But now, I understood that to be truly present and strong for anyone else, I needed to be whole first. Choosing myself did not mean I was selfish. It meant I was brave enough to set clear boundaries and honor my own feelings. It meant I stopped shrinking to fit into spaces that no longer served me. I decided to live in a way that respected my dignity and my heart. At first, this decision felt strange and even uncomfortable. I was not used to putting my own needs first. I had been taught that good mothers sacrifice everything. Yet I realized that sacrifice without self-care leads to emptiness and resentment. I wanted something different. A life where love and care flowed both ways. I began by making small changes. I started saying no to things that drained me. I stopped agreeing to plans just to keep the peace. I gave myself permission to rest when I felt tired, without guilt or explanation. These small acts of choosing myself built a foundation. I began to fill my days with activities that brought me joy and peace. Reading, walking in the park, cooking meals that I loved. I surrounded myself with people who supported me and respected my choices. Choosing myself also meant facing difficult truths. I had to accept that some relationships might never be what I hoped. I had to acknowledge the pain and disappointment without letting it define my future. I learned that I cannot change others. I can only change how I respond. This insight gave me power. Instead of waiting for others to heal or apologize, I focused on my own healing. I nurtured my spirit and trusted my intuition. This process was not easy. There were moments when loneliness crept in and old doubts returned. But I reminded myself that choosing myself was an act of love and courage. I was planting seeds for a healthier, happier life. I also began to celebrate my accomplishments, no matter how small. Each day I chose myself was a victory. Each boundary I set was a step toward freedom. I learned to speak kindly to myself, to encourage rather than criticize. Over time, I noticed changes in how I felt. I was less anxious and more peaceful. I slept better and found more energy for the things I loved. My confidence grew, and so did my joy. Choosing myself affected my relationships too. Some people respected my new boundaries and grew closer to me. Others struggled to understand, but I stayed firm. I realized that true connection comes from mutual respect, not control or obligation. I also found new friendships with people who valued honesty and kindness. These relationships felt refreshing and genuine. They reminded me that I was worthy of love and respect, just as I am. The most important relationship I repaired was with myself. I became my own best friend and strongest supporter. I listened to my feelings and trusted my decisions. I forgave myself for past mistakes and embraced my imperfect humanity. Choosing myself was a turning point. It was a clear message that I mattered, that my happiness and well-being mattered. It was a promise I made to myself to live authentically and fully. I realized that this choice was not a one-time event, but a daily practice. Each morning, I decide again to honor my needs and protect my peace. Each evening, I reflect on how I showed up for myself. This new way of living felt freeing. I no longer felt trapped by guilt or obligation. I no longer feared standing alone because I knew I was never truly alone. I had myself. In choosing myself, I also opened the door to new possibilities. I felt ready to explore new dreams, new goals, and new ways of being. The future looked bright, not because it was perfect, but because I was ready. I understood that life would still have challenges, but I was equipped with the tools to face them. I was stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. I am proud of this choice. It is a powerful act of self-love and respect. It is the foundation of my healing and growth. From this day forward, I choose myself. Not out of selfishness, but out of a deep knowing that I deserve to be seen, heard, and valued. I choose my peace. I choose my happiness. I choose my life. The morning light came gently through the window, casting soft shadows across the room. I woke up with a calm I had not felt in a long time. It was as if a new day had truly begun. Not just in the calendar, but inside me. I smiled quietly to myself. Not because I had forgotten the past, but because I had survived it. This new day felt different. I felt lighter, freer. The weight of old hurts and worries seemed to lift, if only a little. I understood that healing was a process, not a destination. But today was a milestone, a moment to celebrate progress. I took a deep breath and sat up, in bed. The house was quiet, peaceful. I listened to the sounds of the morning, the birds outside, the gentle hum of life beginning. For the first time in a long while, I felt connected to the world around me. I was ready to face what came next. Thought about the journey I had taken to reach this point. The tears, the sleepless nights, the painful conversations. The moments when I wanted to give up, but kept going anyway. Each step had brought me closer to this new day. I got up slowly and walked to the window. The garden outside was blooming, full of life and color. It reminded me that growth can happen even after the harshest winters, that beauty can emerge from struggle. As I looked outside, I remembered the times when I felt invisible, unheard, and powerless. How my children had taken my credit cards, thinking they were protecting me. How they missed the deeper truth about the company I secretly owned. The betrayal still stung, but it no longer defined me. I realized that surviving those wounds had made me stronger. I had discovered inner strength I did not know I had. I had learned to trust myself again, to value my own voice. This new day was a chance to live with that strength, to make choices that honored my worth and my dreams, to build a life filled with love, respect, and peace. I thought about the future. I did not know exactly what it held, but I felt ready. Ready to embrace opportunities, face challenges, and create happiness on my own terms. I decided to begin with small acts of kindness toward myself. I prepared a cup of tea, savoring its warmth and flavor. I wrote a few lines in my journal, capturing my hopes and reflections. I spent time outside, feeling the sun on my face and the breeze in my hair. I walked slowly, noticing the little details. A butterfly landing on a flower, the soft crunch of leaves underfoot. These simple moments brought me joy. I reminded myself that healing does not mean forgetting pain. It means carrying it with grace and courage. It means allowing myself to feel deeply while still moving forward. Throughout the day, I felt a quiet confidence growing inside me, a sense that I was no longer bound by the past, that I had the power to shape my own story. I reached out to a friend and shared a little of my journey. Speaking openly felt freeing. It deepened my connection and reminded me that I am not alone. In the evening, as the sky turned soft shades of pink and orange, I sat quietly and reflected. I thought about how far I had come and where I wanted to go. I smiled again, this time with warmth and peace. I was grateful for this new day and the chance to live it fully. I knew that the road ahead would have ups and downs, that challenges would still come. But I felt ready to face them with courage and hope. This new day was not just a fresh start on the calendar. It was a fresh start in my heart and mind. A renewal of my spirit. I whispered to myself, I am here. I am whole. I am enough. And in that moment, I believed it. Sitting by the window, I felt a deep sense of gratitude wash over me. The journey I had taken was not easy, but it taught me many things. Today, I decided to say thank you. To myself, to those who helped me, and even to the difficult moments that shaped me. Thanking myself was the hardest and most important part. I thanked myself for staying strong when everything felt uncertain, for not giving up, even when the pain was almost too much to bear. I thanked myself for choosing to heal, to grow, and to keep moving forward. I thought about my children. Although our relationship was strained and full of challenges, I found a place in my heart to thank them too. They cared about me in their own way, even if they misunderstood me. Their actions, though hurtful, were born from concern. This was not easy to accept, but I wanted to find peace. I also thanked my close friends who stood by me. Their support was a light in the dark times. They listened without judgment and reminded me that I was not alone. Their kindness gave me courage and hope. Most unexpectedly, I found myself thanking the hardest moments, the betrayals, the misunderstandings, and the loneliness. These experiences forced me to face truths about myself and others. They pushed me to grow beyond the person I once was. Without them, I would not have discovered my inner strength. Saying thank you was not just about the past. It was about embracing the present and the future. It was a way to acknowledge how far I had come and to open my heart to what was still possible. I wrote a letter to myself, expressing this gratitude in words. I told myself that it was okay to feel proud, that I deserved happiness and peace, that every step I took toward healing was worthy of celebration. Writing this letter helped me see my story in a new light. It was not just a tale of pain and loss, but also of resilience and hope. I realized that gratitude was a powerful healer. After finishing the letter, I read it aloud softly. Hearing my own words made the feelings more real. It was as if I was giving myself a warm embrace. This practice became a daily ritual. Every morning, I took a moment to say thank you to myself and to the world. It grounded me and set a positive tone for the day. Gratitude changed how I viewed my challenges. Instead of feeling defeated by them, I saw them as opportunities for growth. Instead of dwelling on what I had lost, I focused on what I could still create. This shift in perspective gave me more peace and joy than I expected. It allowed me to forgive others and myself more easily. Forgiveness did not mean forgetting or excusing hurtful actions. It meant releasing their hold on my heart. I found that saying thank you also helped repair some of my relationships. When I expressed gratitude to those around me, it opened doors for honest and kind conversations. It reminded us all of our shared humanity. One day, I reached out to my daughter with a simple message. "Thank you for trying, even when we did not understand each other." She replied with warmth, and slowly, a bridge began to rebuild between us. These moments of connection filled me with hope. They reminded me that healing is possible, even in the most broken relationships. Saying thank you also made me more aware of the small blessings in everyday life. The warmth of sunlight on my face, the sound of birds singing, a smile from a stranger. These simple joys became anchors that kept me grounded. I learned that gratitude is not about ignoring difficulties or pretending life is perfect. It is about choosing to focus on the good, even when times are tough. It is about finding light in the darkness. As I embraced gratitude, I felt my heart open wider. I became more patient with myself and others. I grew kinder and more compassionate. This change was noticeable not only to me but also to those around me. Friends said I seemed calmer, happier, and more at peace. I believed it because I felt it deeply inside. Saying thank you was a gift I gave myself every day. It was a reminder that I was worthy of love and happiness, that my story mattered. I hope that by sharing this part of my journey, you too might find moments to say thank you in your life. Gratitude can heal wounds, build bridges, and create hope. Before we continue, take a moment to think about what you are thankful for today. Even the smallest things can make a difference. Gratitude is a step toward healing. It is a step toward freedom, and for that, I say thank you. Forgiving myself was not easy. For many years, I carried the weight of guilt and regret like a heavy cloak around my shoulders. I blamed myself for things I could not change. I blamed myself for not seeing the truth sooner. I blamed myself for the broken relationships with my children. But over time, I began to understand that forgiveness was not about forgetting mistakes or pretending everything was perfect. It was about freeing my heart and mind from the pain that held me captive. I started by looking inside and acknowledging my feelings honestly. I admitted my regrets, my fears, and the moments when I felt weak. I allowed myself to feel sadness and disappointment without judgment. It was a painful but necessary step. I knew that holding on to blame only kept me stuck. I realized that I was human. I was not perfect, and neither were the people around me. We all make mistakes. We all hurt and get hurt. This understanding helped me to see my past with more compassion. Forgiving myself meant accepting that I did the best I could with the knowledge and strength I had at the time. It did not mean I approved of everything that happened, but I chose to release the harsh voice inside that said I was not enough. This decision took courage. It meant facing my fears and doubts. It meant choosing healing over pain. I found support in quiet moments of reflection and in conversations with friends who listened without judgment. I wrote a letter to myself, not to blame, but to comfort and encourage. I told myself that it was okay to forgive, that I deserved peace. Writing these words helped me to soften the anger and pain I had carried for so long. Forgiveness also opened the door to healing my relationships. When I forgave myself, I could forgive others more easily. I understood that forgiveness is a gift I give to myself, not just to those who hurt me. I began to practice forgiveness daily. Whenever I caught myself in negative thoughts or self-criticism, I paused and reminded myself that I was worthy of kindness and grace. This small practice made a big difference. One evening, I sat quietly and repeated a simple phrase. I forgive myself. I am enough. Saying these words aloud felt strange at first, but over time, they brought comfort and strength. I noticed that as I forgave myself, the feelings of shame and guilt slowly faded. They were replaced by a gentle peace and a growing sense of self-love. I could finally look in the mirror and see not just the mistakes, but the courage and resilience in my eyes. This process did not erase all the pain or change the past, but it changed how I carried it. Forgiveness became a tool to help me move forward with hope and grace. I learned that forgiving myself was a continuous journey, not a single event. Some days were easier than others. On difficult days, I reminded myself to be patient and gentle. I also discovered that forgiveness was connected to acceptance. Accepting my imperfections and my humanity allowed me to heal more deeply. Through this journey, I found new strength to rebuild my life. I became more confident in my decisions and more compassionate toward myself and others. I saw that forgiveness was not weakness, but a sign of true courage and wisdom. It was an act of self-care and self-respect. As I embraced forgiveness, I felt a lightness in my heart. It was as if a heavy burden had been lifted. I was free to live more fully and love more openly. Forgiving myself also helped me to let go of fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, and fear of not being enough. These fears no longer controlled me. I could breathe more easily and face each day with renewed hope. I felt ready to welcome new experiences and relationships with an open heart. This freedom was a gift I gave to myself, a gift I wished for others who struggle with guilt and regret. If you are listening to this story and carrying similar burdens, I want you to know that forgiveness is possible. It may take time and courage, but it is worth every step. You do not have to be perfect. You do not have to carry the weight of past mistakes forever. You can choose to forgive yourself and begin again. Start with small steps. Speak kindly to yourself. Allow yourself to feel and heal. Remember that you are human and deserving of love and peace. Forgiving myself was one of the most powerful acts of love I ever gave to myself. It changed my life, and I believe it can change yours too. I never imagined that freedom could feel so light. For many years, I carried burdens that were not mine to hold. I was trapped by guilt, fear, and the expectations of others. But today, I stand in a new place, one of freedom, peace, and self-discovery. Freedom began in my mind. It started when I chose to let go of the past. I stopped allowing old wounds to control my emotions or my decisions. This was not easy. It took patience and courage to break free from habits of thinking that held me captive. One morning, I walked outside barefoot. The cool grass touched my feet. The earth felt real and alive beneath me. This simple act connected me to the present moment. It reminded me that I belonged to the world, not to pain or fear. Walking barefoot became a ritual of freedom. It symbolized my choice to shed old layers and walk with honesty and openness. With every step, I felt lighter and stronger. I began to dance again, slowly, gently, without care for what others might think. Dancing was my way to express joy and reclaim my body and spirit. It reminded me that life is meant to be felt fully. Even after hardship, I felt alive in a way I had forgotten. My heart was no longer weighed down by anger or sadness. Instead, it was open to hope and new possibilities. Freedom also meant forgiving others who had hurt me. It was not about excusing their actions, but releasing their hold on my happiness. I chose peace over bitterness. This decision changed how I related to my family. I no longer felt trapped by expectations or old conflicts. I could love from a place of calm and understanding. Being free allowed me to speak my truth clearly and kindly. I stopped hiding my feelings or pretending everything was okay. This honesty brought new respect and connection. I realized that freedom was about being true to myself. It was about honoring my feelings, my needs, and my dreams. It was about living life on my own terms. This journey also taught me to set boundaries with love and confidence. I learned to say no without guilt and yes without fear. These boundaries protected my peace and helped me grow. Freedom gave me the courage to try new things and face challenges with an open heart. I discovered strengths I never knew I had. I took time to explore hobbies and passions that brought me joy. Painting, writing, and gardening became part of my daily life. These activities nourished my soul and helped me heal. The freedom I found was not just personal, it was spiritual. I felt connected to something greater than myself. This connection gave me comfort and strength in difficult times. I also found freedom in simplicity. I let go of clutter, both physical and emotional. I simplified my life to focus on what truly mattered. This simplicity brought clarity and calm. It allowed me to appreciate small moments, a sunrise, a kind word, a quiet evening. I understood that freedom is a choice we make every day. It is a decision to live with intention and love. As I embraced freedom, I felt a deep gratitude for my journey. Every step, even the painful ones, led me here. I saw that freedom is not about running away from problems. It is about facing them with courage and grace. It is about choosing peace despite challenges. I shared my story with friends and strangers, hoping to inspire others to find their own freedom. I wanted them to know that it is possible to break free from pain and fear. If you are listening now, I encourage you to take your first step toward freedom. It might be small, a breath, a kind thought, a moment of stillness. Remember that freedom is your birthright. You deserve to live fully and joyfully. Walk barefoot if you can. Feel the earth beneath your feet. Let it remind you that you are alive and free. Dance, sing, and move your body with joy. Let your spirit soar. Speak your truth with kindness and courage. Set boundaries that protect your peace. Choose forgiveness and love. Release the past and embrace the present. Freedom is waiting for you. It is within your reach. I am free, and so can you be. Knowing who I am has been a long journey. For many years, I searched for answers in the opinions of others. I tried to fit into roles that were expected of me: a good mother, a loyal daughter, a dependable friend. I thought that if I met those expectations, I would find peace. But I learned that true peace comes from knowing and accepting yourself, deeply and honestly. I started by asking myself difficult questions. Who am I beyond my roles and responsibilities? What do I truly value? What are my dreams and fears? These questions did not have easy answers at first. Sometimes I felt lost or confused. But slowly, the fog began to clear. I realized that I am a woman of strength and resilience. I have faced challenges that tested my spirit, yet I have survived and grown. I am also a woman of kindness and compassion, both for myself and others. I have learned to listen to my heart and trust my instincts. Knowing who I am means accepting my imperfections. I am not perfect, and that is okay. I have made mistakes, but they do not define me. I choose to see myself as a work in progress, always learning and evolving. I found that knowing myself gave me freedom. I no longer felt the need to prove myself to others or seek their approval. I could stand firmly in my truth, even if it was different from what others expected. This self-awareness also helped me to make better decisions. I could say no to things that did not align with my values, and yes to opportunities that nurtured my soul. I became more confident and calm in my choices. Knowing who I am allowed me to build healthier relationships. I stopped trying to change others or please them at my own expense. Instead, I focused on honest communication and mutual respect. I also embraced my passions and talents. I rediscovered joys that had been hidden under layers of doubt and fear. Writing, painting, and gardening became ways for me to express my true self. This process was not always easy. It required courage to face my fears and doubts. Sometimes I felt vulnerable and uncertain, but I learned that vulnerability is a sign of strength, not weakness. I surrounded myself with people who supported my journey, friends who accepted me as I am and encouraged me to grow. Their presence gave me comfort and inspiration. Knowing who I am also connected me to my past in a new way. I could see how my experiences shaped me, but I was no longer defined by them. I could honor my history without being held back by it. I began to write my story, not just the difficult parts, but also the moments of joy and growth. Writing helped me to understand myself better and share my journey with others. This knowledge brought peace to my heart. I no longer feared the future because I trusted myself to face whatever came. I knew that I had the strength and wisdom to navigate life's challenges. Knowing who I am also gave me a sense of purpose. I wanted to live authentically and help others do the same. I realized that my story could inspire hope and courage in people who feel lost or broken. I learned that identity is not fixed. It changes and grows as we do. Knowing yourself is a lifelong journey, filled with discovery and healing. I am proud of the woman I have become. She is strong, loving, and wise. She is imperfect, but whole. If you are listening to this story, I want you to know that you are on your own journey of self-discovery. It is okay to take your time. Be gentle with yourself. Keep asking the questions. Keep exploring. You are more than your fears, mistakes, or others' opinions. You have a unique light that only you can share. Knowing who you are is the greatest gift you can give yourself. It brings freedom, peace, and joy. I hope that my story encourages you to embrace your true self, to stand tall in your identity and live with courage and love. Remember, you are enough just as you are, and the world needs your light. As I reach the end of my story, I want to share a message from my heart to yours. Life is never easy. We face challenges that can break us or make us stronger. I have learned that the choice is ours. We can let pain and fear control us, or we can find the strength within to rise above. My journey has been filled with difficult moments, betrayal, confusion, and loneliness. Yet, through those hardships, I discovered something precious: my own power. That power comes from love, forgiveness, and believing in myself. If you are listening to this story, perhaps you are facing your own struggles. Maybe you feel lost or hurt. I want you to know that you are not alone. Many of us have walked similar paths, and many of us have found hope. Trust yourself. Trust your feelings and instincts. They are the compass that will guide you through the darkness. Do not be afraid to ask for help when you need it. Friends, family, and even strangers can offer support if you open your heart. Remember to be kind to yourself. We often are our own harshest critics. Give yourself grace for mistakes and moments of doubt. Healing takes time, and that is okay. Every small step forward is progress. Hold on to hope, even when it seems faint. Hope is a light that never truly goes out. It shines in the smallest acts of courage and kindness. It grows when we nurture it with patience and love. Do not let others define your worth. You are valuable simply because you exist. Your story, your voice, and your dreams matter. Speak up. Share your truth, even if it trembles. Set boundaries to protect your peace. Saying no does not make you selfish. It means you respect yourself enough to choose what is best for your well-being. Boundaries create space for healing and growth. Forgiveness is a gift you give to yourself. It frees you from the chains of anger and resentment. Forgive not only others, but also yourself. Let go of guilt that no longer serves you. Embrace change. Life is full of seasons. Some bring joy, others bring lessons. Each one shapes who you are and who you will become. Welcome change as an opportunity to grow. Celebrate your strengths and your unique gifts. You have talents and qualities that the world needs. Do not hide them out of fear or doubt. Shine your light brightly. Find moments of joy in everyday life. It could be a warm cup of tea, a walk in nature, or a kind smile from a stranger. These moments remind us that life is still beautiful. Take care of your body and mind. Nourish yourself with healthy food, rest, and activities that bring peace. Your well-being is the foundation of your strength. Connect with others who support and uplift you. Community is powerful. We are stronger together than alone. Share your experiences and listen to theirs. Together, we heal. Never stop learning about yourself. Self-discovery is a lifelong journey. Be curious and open to new experiences. They will teach you more about who you are and what you want. Speak to yourself with love and encouragement. Replace negative thoughts with kind words. You deserve your own compassion. Remember that healing is not linear. There will be good days and hard days. Be patient with the process and with yourself. Above all, believe in your worth and your capacity to overcome. You have survived every difficult day so far. That is a testament to your resilience. My story is just one of many, but I hope it shows you that even in pain, there is hope. Even in loss, there is a chance to find new meaning. Even in silence, there is a voice waiting to be heard. Thank you for listening to my journey. It means more than words can say. I am grateful for this connection between us, across time and space. If this story touched your heart, I invite you to carry its message forward. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Let kindness and hope spread like wildfire. Before we finish, I want to ask you, where are you tuning in from today? Whatever your story is, whatever you face, know that you are seen and valued. Please, Subscribe to this channel if you want to hear more stories of hope and strength. Tomorrow, I have saved something truly special just for you. Until then, take care of yourself. Be gentle, be brave, and be free. Remember, you are never alone. Your story matters.